I went to Humber College. I chose Humber because for two reasons. The first reason was I reached out to people who worked in the film industry and got an answer that a lot of people are hired right out of Humber because of the technical experience they get. And then the second reason was because I went and did a campus tour and it felt like the right place. Yeah, so I do actually have a bachelor's degree. So though I did go to a college, I technically have a university level education. But my bachelor's degree is specifically in filmmaking, which is a more um, sort of specific degree than you would get if you went to a university. Typically, you would get like a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of either Applied or Fine Arts, but mine is obviously very specific. And yeah, trades were never for me. So, but college, yes, because I knew that I wanted to be doing stuff that was hands-on. And even though I have a bachelor's education, that hands-on experience from college is still applicable in my program. To be honest, not really that different. I think the biggest difference is just for me, I was in a different city. So I was, living on my own and being an adult for real for the first time. But in terms of workload, I think it's just different because it's more specific, it's more specialized. So most of what I was doing, most of my homework was all very focused on one particular industry, as opposed to a bunch of sort of random subjects that aren't necessarily related. But in terms of like the actual workload, it's not really too different. It's definitely a lot of work. But I found in my experience it sort of ramped up. So the longer you were in school, sort of the worse it got, like the more homework you had and projects and stuff. Socially, obviously, like it's kind of different. But your professors are, at least at my school, it's like way more relaxed. So like, you guys will call your teachers like Mrs. Boucher. For us, like we would call our profs by their first name, or sometimes a nickname, or it really depends, but yeah. I was in the Bachelor of Film and Media Production program. The first 2 years were pretty general. So we learned sort of a little bit about all different aspects of filmmaking. And then once we got to our third and fourth year is when we started to specialize into specific roles in the industry. So for me, I specialized in direction, production management, and assistant direction. So I obviously learned how to direct movies, and then I learned how to like lead a set, as opposed to I didn't really focus on producing. Like that's more sort of like financial and like office-based work. But what I did was more sort of on set, like actually shooting stuff. So that's what I specialized in. But so our projects would look like we would have to shoot shorts. So we'd have like a 2-minute short. Sort of in our early first few years of school, we would do like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, stuff like that. And then once we got to our third and fourth year, the shorts became, 7 to 10 minutes or even 20 minutes, depending on the script. And so that obviously is pretty different from like writing an essay in high school and stuff. We did do a lot of that as well, especially because I was in a bachelor's program. We did have to hit a certain benchmark of like academic standards. So we did like, silly essays that nobody cared about. But yeah, a lot of our projects were film based. For me, when I started to specialize, it looked like, we would write a lot of scripts and we'd get graded on our scripts. we would break down a script, which is essentially like, organizing it, and then like planning a day of shooting down to all the details and everything. And then delivering what we call like a production binder, which has basically everything you need in the pre-production stage, which is all your script and your breakdowns and schedules and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of what we were graded on was really practical. So. I always wanted to do film. Since I was pretty young, it was like what I wanted to do. I didn't have a backup plan, which I'm sure you guys have heard you need to have. I don't think that's true. But so film was always the answer. And then why I went to school, because a lot of people in the industry sort of go either way as to whether you need to go to school to make movies. I thought it was important because I didn't have any previous connections to the industry. So for me, it made sense to learn everything from scratch because I had nobody in my personal life that would teach me. And I knew that I would like make connections. And the main reason I think to go to film school is because it's like the safest place to learn how to make movies and mess up, and like that's kind of okay, versus if I were to just sort of go in and try to network and build up that way, there's less opportunity for error. So you kind of have to just make it up, as opposed to being in school, you're obviously supported by professors and classmates and stuff. I would recommend my program. I think we had really great professors at Humber, especially in the bachelor program. They all have at some point, and a lot of them do still work in the industry. So it's not, like we're getting people who only studied this subject. They actually did it for real. I think like probably most programs in college and university, but definitely something in an arts-based industry, is you 100% have to put in what you want to take out of it. So no matter, you can say the program is amazing or it's not that good, how, you obviously people have different opinions, but it's only really going to give you the amount of energy and effort that you put into it. So that, looks like making an intentional effort to get to know your professors, because they're the people who have done this. Their, criticism is obviously valid. So I think it's definitely worth it. In my field, the idea of a career is very loose. Most people who work in film sort of do a couple different things, or if they don't, they're doing stuff on a million different things, right? So immediately out of school, so like I said, I focus on directing. I want to direct. Specifically, I would like to direct television. But I was realistic immediately when I had that goal. There's no way that at 20 years old, 21, whatever, that I'm going to be directing TV. So I knew that I needed a secondary employable skill. So while I was in school, I focused on assistant directing, which is like, leading the crew. So the director on set leads the actors. The assistant director leads the crew. It's not an assistant to the director. It's really complicated, and a lot of people it's nothing you would ever need to know if you don't know film, but that is the difference. So I focused on that, but I actually didn't get employed in that. So I got lucky, and through the connections and the indie stuff that I was doing on the side, I met someone, and they were working on a big TV show, which typically someone of my level would not have access to, because you need to be in a union. And being unionized, of course, has all these steps. You need to work on certain productions for however many days, and it's this whole big thing. But I got lucky, and there was an opening that is non-union. So I didn't need any really previous experience. It was really, truly the only entry-level job, and that was the puppet assistant on the Chucky TV show. So So I had just spent 4 years learning how to be a director, how to be an assistant director and producer and all this stuff. And then now I'm working with puppets. So that is sort of like was my big like good job that I had. And then since then, obviously shows are fleeting. So, we shoot for 6 months and then we wrap and then you jump to a new show. So since then through a connection I made there, I'm now working in prosthetics. So I work, mostly I tell people I make dead bodies for a living. But we do, like severed limbs and facial prosthetics sometimes too. But right now what we're working on is like dead body props for movies, which is really cool. And is not something I ever thought that I would do at all. And then obviously because of these of fate aligned connections that I've made, I now work on productions that are significantly bigger than I expected to be working on a year out of school. So I'm working with like Hollywood directors, which is crazy. So that's what I do now. That being said, who knows how long that's gonna go for. It's definitely not, I'm not super skilled in that area. I'm really lucky that I met someone who deliberately is mentoring me, which is, again, crazy. But yeah, so I don't think prosthetics is what I'm going to do forever. Eventually, I do want to get into the union as an assistant director. Right now, I'm working on writing stuff so that I can pitch it to people who might maybe give me money and then maybe I can direct stuff. But I am sort of like testing the waters with this whole like puppet and prosthetics thing just as like this is cool and I never expected it. And of course, all of the skills that I learned as a director and assistant director still apply. It's just in a different way. I think the main thing is if you're really passionate about what you want to do, college can be a really great opportunity to meet people and be like hone and practice your skills. And typically, like I said, especially speaking arts related, a lot of the time what you do in school is sort of builds your initial portfolio. So it is, I think, really important to take that seriously, right? I personally did not come from money, so I, did the OSAP thing. I paid for all my schooling. I have student loans. It sucks, but from my perspective, I think it's really important that when you do decide to go to college, that it's not a decision that you're making for someone else. I think a lot of kids, I know this when I was applying to schools, a lot of people felt like my parents want me to go to school. I don't really want to go to school. I don't know what to go to school for, so I'm just going to go and then party. And yes, there is partying, and that is, socially an important part of being in school. But I think, for a lot of people, the reality is school costs a lot of money, and so you should take it seriously. The main thing is I think put into your education what you want to get out of it, right? Like the main difference, I guess, I didn't mention this earlier, but I think one of the big differences between high school and college is that a lot of the time your professors aren't going to babysit you, right? If you don't care, they're not really going to push you to care. So if you, decide to sleep in for 6 of your 14 classes, that sucks, right? So I think take it seriously, but have fun. Also understand that like it gets better than college and also kind of doesn't, right? Like it's not that different from high school. You're still going to deal with the same BS drama that you did in high school. It's just going to be in some ways worse because now these people have nobody to answer to. But I don't know, have fun, but also be aware that this is an important part in your career. But it's also not everything.